Aside from what I see in the education system and also just observing kind of the behaviors of children as a land mammal psychologist, I'm worried about how few of this newer generation are able to criticize the previous generation or generations with critical thinking skills. You've got Greta. Greta had pretty decent parents, and they're probably getting much better because she's been challenging past generations, right? So in a way, she is also being a role model to not the future, but the past that are still alive today, or at least the ones that died, how to reevaluate how history should, more objectively be written. But that there's so few children that are even kind of activists who realize how, their own parents, families, communities, schools, doctors fail them, politicians. And now they shouldn't spend their entire time doing that, but they should be capable of doing it and then moving on to cultural repair or ecological repair or future planning or, science education or things like that, right? Moving away from the monetary paradigm, saying, no, 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 I don't want to have a life jacket at the end of my life, so I will, stay away from religions, right? Life jacket, I think is the right term. This a straight jackets, the ones that are incapable of reality at levels where, when they need to go towards science, they'll go even more towards religion. And always throw in money in every kind of paradigm just for additional toxicity. So if more of the newer generation were doing this, I would have hope. Of course, Greta gives me hope, but Greta is still not talking about things that, should have been part of her message from the beginning. But of course, she will eventually grow into this, and she's very young, and to actually deal with reality already at the levels that she is, that should be a new category in a Nobel Prize. It should be that Nobel Prizes could come to like 6-year-olds who deal with reality better than, their educators, their parents. And there are some like this. And in fact, you'll see a decline though. I've been talking about this for years, studying children's responses to the natural world reality, right? I see that they're infected with HSD at younger ages, and they're actually being trained as slaves to stay close to their parents as their best friends. So they're not getting parenting, right? They're not getting the nurturing part of their, very important years. But I also think that there should be more, if I'm going to have hope, children who are saying, okay, I'm not going to spend my time arguing with my parents, so I could tell my parents when they want to see how I'm doing, okay, well, I guess we're limited to talking about the weather, but only about today and only the positive aspects of it. And maybe we shouldn't call each other on the days that it rains or it's a little bit colder or a little bit hotter because, you probably won't be able to handle it. So they'll talk about immediate weather, which should be 1 to 2 minutes. Don't talk about weather patterns. Don't talk about climate. Don't talk about anything related to reality with your parents. And you can just say, well, I need to deal with reality, Mom and Dad, because it's going to hit me in the face pretty hard during my lifetime. And, societies aren't very fast at evolving their cultures to humane assisted suicide, So, they probably shouldn't expect that, the kids, when things get worse, right? They should probably be brainwashed into thinking the responsibility that nobody took before them at the levels that they should have if they were using human standards should fall on them, and that's unrealistic because they already were born at a time when it was too late to fix things. So it's pretty cruel to do this, but that's what's happening. I mean, David Attenborough is doing this. Oh yes, we're counting on you guys. You're so resilient and innovative. And yet what he's doing is another documentary to get us to appreciate the things that every other species does that we don't. He's not talking about what's wrong up here. So again, it's not the right kind of documentaries. So again, taking more steps backwards with the older generation like David Attenborough Jane Goodall and all the people that you guys want to listen to. And it's nice to be interested in science and astronomy, but this telescope, I'm going to do another vlog later to say the things that are wrong about the very concept about this telescope and how it may or may not be used at this critical time in the history of the Earth that your kids will be stuck with. You know, that's kind of weird. So again, people, your kids are mentally ill if they're not criticizing your generation. And, you know, you should be, as adults, grandparents, teachers, parents, you should be saying to your kids, I'm ready to learn things from the perspective of your generation. Just like kindergarten kids show up in school and they know, wow, I could learn, you know, letters, words, games, numbers, you know, stories, reading. Well, you guys should do this, the older ones, even the teachers. You should be ready more to learn, especially from the kids that haven't been infected with HSD so much at this point in their lives, depending on the environments they grew up in and how they're susceptible to these things based on their social needs. For example, if they don't have friends outside the home, then they might need all of their social needs met at home, which means they might be more susceptible to be infected with HSD. There's a lot of variations like this. But I'm telling you, it's getting younger and younger, than the human brain is becoming useless and part of the problem. It's becoming kind of an automaton for, hopefully, a way for evolution to kind of end so many reproductive abilities or children that survive a long time, because the dumber the parents will get every generation, the more likely they'll make mistakes. Like in the news, you see how many people died in cold climate, where parents have a bunch of kids in their car and they're running the car and dying of exhaust. Now, I'm sorry, but things of stupidity like this, killing your own kids, this is just one example, is going to happen more and more. You know, not having warm clothes or moving around or asking for help, just isolating yourself because you're all best friends in the car and you're going to die together. This kind of nonsense is going to happen either in a fire or freezing. And it's because you guys don't know how to survive as a species. You know how you can know how a species is at the top of the survival of the fittest? Is their ability to actually coexist with the natural world. You are so low as a species in this regard. You should be focusing on teaching your kids how to live in a modest way in the natural world where they give more than they take. That's really something that should be part of every program, every discussion, every newscast, every documentary. And it should be about, we are sorry, if we're alive as adults, we should be apologizing frequently to our own kids, other kids, you know, our co-workers' kids, about how we fail them. But again, that doesn't mean you should give up, because that is a horrible thing to do while you're still alive. You should still learn more things, because the more you learn things that are important with your kids, the more of them will learn, the faster they will, the more quality, and the more they'll have, assistant co-facilitator buttlickers who need friends and are still wanting to be friends with their kids instead of their parents. So I need to see more of this, people, if you want me to have hope. Otherwise, this is a generational child abuse global society that you have going on. And again, this is a kind of cruelty that surpasses, although your rose-colored glasses and your denial is so thick now, you will think other times of history were worse. But I'm talking about as a species, to its own offspring, on a global scale, at these levels where you're so in denial about how you're hurting your kids, it's never been seen.